Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge YouTube channel and to highlights of stage 1 of the 100th edition of the Volta Ciclista a Catalunya. The loop starting and finishing as it normally does on the coast in Calais and then going inland for some climbs. 178k stage, and these climbs weren't particularly steep and shouldn't be too threatening to a sprinter in good condition. But with this sort of profile, we knew a break could win like the Gent in 2019, as well as some sprinters being caught out on the climb and there being a reduced bunch sprint. Now, at this year's edition of Catalunya, we've got Chris Froome, Nairaman, Peter Sagan after a good result at Milano-Sanremo, despite not looking himself at Tirreno-Adriatico. We didn't really know how he'd go. Richard Carapaz leading Ineos with Adam Yates, as well as Mark Hirschi's first race of the season, and Joao Almeida. Movistar, of course, bringing the GOAT trident of Valverde, Mas and Soler. But if you want more background on the stages and the start list in much more detail, I've got the big preview video I put up a couple of days linked down below. Predictably, a break went away early. There's the KOM jersey on offer for the rider that could mop up the most points in the middle of this stage from the break. The four that made it being Moneke, Tarame, Martin and Berhane. Rui Costa had a bad crash and had to abandon. I think Peter Seri was caught up in that crash as well before live images started, where we saw Bora Hansgrohe pacing the break back. Now, we didn't know whether it was for Meus or Sagan. We presume Sagan, who was the favourite for this stage. They had Ben Zwihoff pacing on the front. And they also used Ida Schelling to pace. Now, they might not have had too much of a choice. Kelderman and Kamna are riding for their own GC, and they were presumably hoping the stage would be easy so Meus and Sagan could get over the hills and contest the sprint. But Schelling packs a lot of punch, and these climbs were never going to be a problem for him. But he had to work a lot this stage until Movistar, on that second to last longer climb on the steeper section, started to pace really hard, dropping Peter Sagan with over 5 kilometers left in the climb. Movistar used the 6% steeper section of the climb at the start to put riders like Sagan, Meus under pressure. Max Canter on DSM, a quick man as well, being dropped. Moneke was the last remnant of the breakaway that hadn't been mopped up by Movistar on the climb. He was going for the KOM points at the end of this climb, but Movistar were eating into his gap so quickly. Chris Froome started yo-yoing, but Moneke managed to hang on by about 20 seconds to Movistar charging behind him to take the KOM jersey and pretty much had to stop pedaling. He did a full gas effort there. Pedrero, Verona, Semitier, I think, were pacing hard, and that put Chris Froome into difficulty. He made it over the main climb, but then there was a false descent, and then they climbed up a little bit more, and he got popped just at the end before they began the 10-kilometer plus technical descent, and Movistar didn't let up there either. They paced really hard on the descent. They were even causing mini splits. Marc Soler actually unintentionally lost the wheel to Valverde and 2 other riders in front of him on the descent, but he actually caught back up to them. I thought perhaps Movistar were going to try something like on the Vuelta Stage 2 in 2020, where they paced really hard, then got on the front on the descent, and then unleashed Marc Soler, who actually took their biggest win of the season in Stage 2 of the Vuelta last year, but they didn't. And they burnt, I think, Pedrero until they got into the short valley before the last climb, and they sat up. They have Carlos Verona still here, and I think they're joking with Ineos, asking Ineos to pace, but there's no incentive for Ineos or Jumbo-Visma, the GC teams, to pace right now. There's no break up the road that they need to keep in check. There's nothing for their GC riders to gain in the flat run into the finish. So Ineos had no interest in pacing. Quick men still in this group with Dion Smith on BikeExchange and Camp for Trek Segafredo, but with no one controlling anything and Movistar not pacing, attacks started to fly thick and fast. Masnada a couple of times, Lotto Soudal throwing 3 or 4 riders at every move, including Krohn the Dane, as well as Geraint Thomas for Ineos getting involved in an early move following Masnada. Trek also had Ellison, Brambilla and Ciccone trying to get into a few of these moves late, but a move didn't stick until Luis Leon Sanchez, Spanish national champ, attacked, gapping Jonas Vingegaard with Krohn on his wheel, and there was no reaction from behind. Lotto Soudal were blocking half the road except for Leonard Kamna, I thought riding for GC with Remy Rochas on his wheel, the Cofidis rider, trying to bridge across to this Luis Leon Sanchez move, and no one paced for several kilometers. Movistar didn't pace. Ineos and Jumbo-Visma weren't too concerned about Kemna going up the road for GC. They didn't want to give him more than 40-45 seconds. And you can see some kilometers later with about 10k's to go, Ida Schelling's moving up to block. BikeExchange had like 5 or 6 riders in this group, but they were badly positioned at the back. Callum Scottson in front of Dion Smith on the right-hand side here. You'd think with Dion Smith being the quickest man in this group and Peter Sagan having been dropped, that BikeExchange would have paced early to control that move. They didn't. They waited until the last climb for Esteban Chavez to eventually start pacing, but it was too late At that point, the gap was out to 35 seconds. Chavez was pretty much left on his own to try and bring back a group of 4 who were working well together until Leonard Kamna attacked them. And it was too late for Trek running for camp in the sprint. Marc Soler had a puncture in the last 3Ks. I think he got given the same time as everybody on GC. But someone from the group of 4 was going to win the stage. Jumbo-Visma and Ineos, as I said, just keeping that gap in Kamna in check, not letting it blow out to anything crazy. But he seemed to be going for the stage primarily anyway. He wasn't just pacing them in full gas, trying to maintain his gap on GC. A few hundred meters to go, Krohn puts himself 4th wheel behind Rochas and Luis Leon Sanchez. He can mark both of them. Rochas launches really early at 250 meters to go and kind of pinches Luis Leon Sanchez between Kamna and himself, which allows Krohn to get an unencumbered run at the line to the left-hand side, beating Luis Leon Sanchez easily. His first World Tour race, and he wins the stage. A great day for Lotto Soudal, and about 16 seconds behind it was Dion Smith on the left-hand side as we look at it of Alexander Kamp for Trek Segafredo, taking out the bunch sprint for 5th ahead of Mohoric and Schelling. And despite it being his first World Tour race, you've got to say, Krohn really pulled a fast one on Luis Leon Sanchez, who maybe didn't expect him to be so quick. Much better positioning from him than Luis Leon Sanchez, and he got that magic draft off Rochas to launch him past everybody. But the big question I want to ask is, what was Movistar's ultimate plan today? Pacing the drops again on the main climb? Totally get it. Makes perfect sense. They got Valverde in the group. They can drop some of the other sprinters like Mayus as well and Can to put them under pressure. Not attacking on the descent. It was pretty far from the finish. That makes sense too. Not committing to fully pacing in the valley as well when they've only got Verona left. I get that too. They still had Dion Smith in this group who at this point in Valverde's career is way quicker than Valverde in a bunch sprint. So maybe they wanted a bit of chaos. They wanted to split up again and get riders into a smaller group rather than the 60 plus man group they had with about 25Ks to go. But what makes zero sense is when Luis Leon Sanchez for Astana goes up the road and they still have riders in the group behind. They've still got Valverde for a reduced bunch sprint. They've still got Soler that they could be getting in a move, and they don't pace with Verona or Soler or try and bridge across at all. They just plonk Valverde's second wheel, who pretty much blocks and disrupts the chase to the forward head. But here's the results. Andreas Krohn for Lotto Soudal winning the stage ahead of Luis Leon Sanchez, Rochas and Kamna. 16 seconds ahead of Smith, Mohoric, Schelling still came 7th after doing all that work. Valverde, Kamp and Valgren. Krohn going into the leader's jersey, but I think he'll lose that today. The 18.5 kilometer time trial in stage 2, 200 meters elevation gain in this TT around Bagnoles. A lot of the riders will be familiar with this area just outside of Girona. Favourite for the stage, Remy Cavagna after that Paris-Nice fantastic ITT, but Rowan Dennis could probably win this too. This is the big opportunity for Almeida and McNulty to put as much time as possible into the stronger climbers of the GC contenders ahead of the mountainous stages in 3 and 4. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like it down below if you did. We've obviously got immediate reactions to each Catalunya stage on the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast uploaded soon after the stage finishes, but I'll see you with the highlights for stage 2 tomorrow. Ciao.